You're watching Times XP. I'm Driti Atri, and here are the biggest stories that are making headlines across the globe today. So let's start with it. Iran's missile surge here. Iran's missile production is reportedly accelerating at an unprecedented pace. Well, the Western intelligence warned Iran may soon have strike capacity that are far beyond the region. In the meantime, the US and Israel, they are monitoring every single launch site, and that too very closely. 2,000 missile claim. Analysts now believe that Iran could fire up to 2,000 missiles in simultaneous waves. Such capacity could overwhelm most defense systems in the Middle East. In fact, Washington has called the development deeply concerning now. Secret nuclear sites here. New satellite images reveal possible covert enrichment centers deep underground. Now, these sites are believed to be fortified against the airstrikes. In fact, international inspectors have been denied access for months now. Uranium relocation allegations. Well, Tehran is accused of moving enriched uranium to hardened bunkers, and that too outside Natanz. Now, this relocation complicates the potential military action. In the meantime, Iran insists that the move, they are defensive and legal. Sodium perchlorate shipments. Well, multiple Chinese vessels have reportedly delivered sodium perchlorate. That's the key to solid fuel production. Well, the shipments allegedly bypass export scrutiny. In the meantime, Western nations, they are urging Beijing to intervene. China denies restriction. China has rejected calls to halt its chemical exports to Iran. Officials argue that the material have civilian purposes. But you know what? Here critics say that China's stance indirectly strengthens Iran's missile program. Round-the-clock factories, Iranian missile assembly lines, they are running non-stop, day and night. Defense experts say production has tripled since mid-2024. Footage leak online shows new warheads prototypes under development. Regional alliance threat. Military planners warn that Israel, Gulf states and the US bases, they are all within range. Regional defense systems, they are on heightened alert right now, and allies, they are conducting joint drills to test the readiness. Nuclear deal lapse. Well, the collapse of the 2015 nuclear accord has left oversight minimal. In the meantime, international experts, they say that Iran's stockpile is growing unchecked. Well, diplomatic talks, they remain stalled in Vienna. Bomb-making estimates. Well, Western intelligence estimate Iran could produce several nuclear weapons within months. Israeli officials call it a red line moment. On the other side, Tehran dismisses all the claims as Zionist propaganda. Israel on alert. Tel Aviv has increased its Iron Dome and Arrow system coverage. Civilian defense drills, they are underway across major cities. In the meantime, residents, they are being advised to keep the urgency supplies ready. Escalation risk. Any Iranian strike could trigger all-out regional conflict. Here, analysts fear that Lebanon, Syria and even Yemen, everybody could quickly be drawn in. Washington is quietly pressing for de-escalation talks. Hezbollah Houthis militia, well, Iran's regional proxies, they are expanding the operation. Hezbollah's rockets, Houthis drones and Iraqi militia could all coordinate in future conflicts. Israel has warned that it could respond on all the fronts. Western watch. US and European surveillance planes, they are tracking unusual cargo and troop movement. Cyber units, they are also monitoring Iranian communication. In the meantime, tensions remain at their highest in years. France protests intensify. Nationwide unrest continue as protesters, they march against the inflation and inequality. Public frustration with their president, Macron's government, grows day and night. Police have made over 500 arrests in recent days. Macron under pressure. Macron faces criticism for prioritizing the defense budget over domestic welfare. Opposition leader now demand answers and also early elections. Here analysts warn that France's social stability is right now being tested. Public versus priority, while citizens accuse the government of funding weapons over welfare. Rising fuel and food costs have reignited anger last seen during the Yellow Vest protests. Here, union threatens that mass strike next week could happen. Paris riot scenes, Paris streets turned chaotic overnight with fires, barricades, and tear gases. Several police officers were injured in the clash. Authorities fear that this unrest could spread to smaller cities as well. India's diaspora story, a look back at how millions of Indians migrated across continents during the colonial rule, specifically Trinidad and Tobago. From laborers to global professionals, the diaspora shaped the global economies. Today, their influence extends from Silicon Valley to the Caribbean. Mexico pushback. Mexico refuses the United States' demand to expand migrant detention zones. Officials call the plan unfair and unsustainable, and in the meantime, tensions rise ahead of the high-level border talks. Sheinbaum stands. President Claudia Sheinbaum insists Mexico's sovereignty will not be compromised at any cost. She pledges humanitarian handling of the migrants and not militarizing. In the meantime, the US says cooperation is non-negotiable. Turkey and Qatar, they are in spotlight right now. Turkey and Qatar are quietly reshaping Middle East power balances. Defense and investment agreements, they are deepening between the two allies. In the meantime, Western observers, they say that the partnership is strategic and long-term. Alliances tested. NATO and Gulf allies, they are uneasy about Ankara's independent diplomacy. Qatar's financial influence gives it leverage across the crisis zone, while both the nations are positioning for a post-war Middle East order. Trump-France row here. Donald Trump reignites tensions with Paris, calling France a nation in decline. The French Foreign Ministry dismisses the remark as political posturing. Here, analysts say that Trump is using Europe to rally conservative voters. Cyber threat from China. Western cybersecurity agencies warn of Chinese state-linked hacking group. Targets include defense, finance, and energy network. The US labels the activity part of a digital Cold War. Five Eyes tensions here. Rift has emerged inside the Five Eye Alliance over the data sharing. Canada and New Zealand reportedly raised privacy concern here. In the meantime, the US officials deny any formal split but admit to reduce the coordination. United States airport disruption here. Well, the mass US shutdown, it has crippled air traffic control system nationwide due to shortage of the staff. Thousands of flights were cancelled or delayed. The FAA promises a full investigation into the whole system, but nothing can be done until and unless the shutdown is lifted. West Bank violence, Israeli forces and Palestinian groups, they clashed in multi-town overnight. Civilian casualties are mounting as the raids continue. In the meantime, the UN calls for restraint amid the fear of wider escalation. Venezuelan military drills here. Well, Venezuela launched live fire exercises, and that too near Guyana border. Tanks, aircraft, naval units, everything took part in the show of force. Well, the move follows the war against the United States naval forces. Global flashpoint multiple crises, they are unfolding simultaneously. From Middle East to Latin America, analysts warn of a new era of multi-front instability. The world leaders are calling for restraint just to avoid the future conflicts. And with that, that's a wrap-up of our 30 news bulletins from around the globe. From Gaza to Venezuela, from Iraq to the United States. The world is changing, and so is geopolitics, and TimesXP is here to give you all the information on all the important news that matters the most. Again, I am Driti Atri, keeping you informed.